closed. We can just stare into each other's eyes. Okay.
Okay. Welcome to episode 4 of the Her Circle podcast.
We back at ya. I decided every week I'm just going to say something random.
Love it.
And just not keep it the same because I'm not professional.
We just want to keep it fresh and keep surprising our
I'm
listeners.
not going to act like I'm professional and put together. So
no, because we're not. That would not
even
be
a little
authentic.
bit. I might look like it.
Yeah.
But I'm not. It's all an act, guys. Okay. So we kind of talked earlier or last episode about just kind of like balancing maybe different friendships and different seasons. I think there's a lot that like plays into that that we could probably touch on a little bit more. And then obviously I think kind of share a little bit of our experience on long distance too.
Yeah.
I know not everybody obviously has that experience of like long distance like that or for that long through as many seasons as we have, because most of our friendship has been long distance.
Yeah, and I feel like most people's friendships maybe develop in college or high school when not as young as we are. So you have that core college group. And I was just thinking about both of our parents. Like your mom has been friends with
like Shelly and Beth since she was born.
Yeah.
So she has like her core group of friends that I like know off of my head that I could list off, like Deborah, Shelly, Beth, all of them are like literally
childhood friends.
And like that's who she like Shelly just took her to her hand surgery.
Yeah.
She just was at Deborah's house before my birthday.
Yeah.
Like she went from her house to my house. So that's another thing like too, like of having that example of that's been really cool to like see. I think times are a little bit different too. I think that's like not as common.
Yeah.
As it maybe used to have been.
Yeah.
Because I feel like back in that time, making them seem really old, back in the old days.
Back in the day.
I feel like they were almost forced to put the effort in because you didn't have it on your hands.
Yes.
Like if I want to know what my friend Joe down the street is doing, I could just probably look on Facebook or Instagram and somewhat figure out what she did
actually
today.
Having to have a conversation.
Instead of putting in the effort to be like, hey, how was your day? So I think that might be kind of a negative to some like friendships or relationships in general.
Yeah.
I know we had talked back about letter writing. My aunt, literally to this day, I get a birthday card, anniversary. We get birthday, Christmas, anniversary. I think we get Valentine's Day, and maybe others like Christmas,
really?
Halloween things sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
Here, there. Yeah. Every holiday.
I didn't know she was that good at it. That's how my grandma
and
was.
it will just be a little note, love you, and it'll be like a quirky little card because that's who she is.
Yeah.
And so like back then, like you had to write.
Yeah, you had to really take the time to think about that person.
Like you had to make the point to reach out to them because they weren't at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes maybe we take advantage of that and we think it's so easy that it's like, oh, I can call them tomorrow. Or I can text or whatever. And not that that's a bad thing, that we can have the ability to just shoot a text and be like, how are you today?
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes maybe it's almost so easy that we don't do it. If that makes sense?
Yes, that makes sense too. But going back to the social media, it tricks you into thinking you are connected.
Yeah, when you're not.
Because you're just seeing what they're posting. So you're like, I know what so-and-so did.
Yep.
Instead of them actually telling you what they did.
With that too, like you said, I think a lot of like famous people, now we're in that day and age of influencers and, social media, everything they do, they're posting their lives essentially on into where people think that they know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's when you get people starting to like make opinions or saying this or that. But it's like, you only know what they're letting you see.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying there's not genuine people online that aren't giving you a lot of truth and a little peek into their life, but they're only giving you a little peek.
Yeah.
And so it kind of goes to that. Like, you're like, oh, well, I know what they did today, so like I'm good.
And I'm connected. Like, I'm in the know.
But having words and communication, I just think is so important. It makes like such a difference. It makes someone feel better that I actually chose to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And nowadays it is easier. So even a text, I'm not saying that's a bad thing to be like, hey, how was your day? But like on social media, like you think and you feel like you know how they've been doing because you've been seeing, but it's like in reality, they're just showing what they want you to see.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't like, oh, hey, by the way, I lost my job.
Right.
Or something. I mean, some people might share that, or it might be later on down the road. But you might not know exactly how they're feeling or what they're doing. So I do think there's a lot of benefits to social media, but I do think that plays a role sometimes. Like I think about my mom and them. It's like you had to be intentional or your friendships weren't going to last.
Yeah, they just weren't. They didn't exist. You had to really go out there and put the effort in, like you said.
I think the intentionality sometimes isn't there.
Yeah, and my dad still has quite a few childhood friends, and he had the benefit of his parents lived in the same town that he grew up in.
Kind of like mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anytime he went back to visit his parents, all of his friends were there.
Yeah.
All of the same group of guys that he was hanging out with, they were there as well. So yeah, that definitely does factor in, I think, to when these friendships develop and how long they last. And I think that social media is amazing in so many aspects, but it's also a little bit deceitful.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Which everyone who's listening to this knows
that. Yeah. And I think we're in that generation where we've kind of experienced before that and now that. So we've kind of seen what it can do, but what it's done. Like, you know, we've seen that. And then, like you said, with our parents, you've experienced, like your dad have experienced seeing that through my mom.
Yeah.
And so I think that also can be helpful because we've still experienced that. But I think about like kids now, I'm like, do you even talk to your friends? Like, I see like kids just like, they just Snapchat all day. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, I Snapchatted them today. And I'm like, that's not talking.
That's not talking, yeah.
Like, so it's interesting to like see
and the different kind
and
of
how
friendships.
that like those friendships are gonna like develop or like what they can become as they get older.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's a weird concept to me. To be like, oh yeah, I mean, I've Snapchatted them 5 times today. And I'm like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, like what does that really mean?
Yeah.
In a friendship?
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a different like world with that. And being intentional to me, I think, is probably the number one thing in a friendship.
Yeah.
And a relationship in general, probably for most things in life. If you're not intentional with things and what you do, I mean, wanting something to last and wanting it to be good, I think you have to be intentional with your actions and what you do and what you say. Not saying that you won't ever maybe make the wrong step or the wrong words or this or that, but still being intentional on how you turn it around or making the effort to fix something if you want it fixed.
Yeah.
I think that plays a role into different seasons of friendships, like maintaining that with different seasons and navigating that.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky now in our time, I guess. There's so much pressure to always be doing everything all the time. And I think that can be overwhelming in your marriage, your career, in your friendships. And we had a situation in April where I felt like my husband was doing too much. I was like, he was working pretty much from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m, 4 or 5 days a week. And I was feeling very anxious that he wasn't managing his time. I shouldn't say that. He had too much going on. Yeah. It was too much.
Like you couldn't manage it.
We had just had a baby.
Yeah.
He's working on new projects, all great things.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of his time. And he ended up having an 8-minute long seizure at work. And just as you were talking about balancing and going through things, that came really, really strong to my mind.
Yeah.
That if you don't prioritize some things and say no to certain things, your body's going to stop you.
Yeah.
And the night before he had his seizure, I was texting him because he had been gone all day. He had stopped on his way home working on another project. And I texted him and I said, you're doing way too much. Like, I'm feeling really worried about you. Yeah. He was hardly sleeping. And I think at this point he was drinking at least an energy drink a day,
Yeah.
which are, in my opinion, not good for you.
Yeah. I think the same.
And he called me Tuesday afternoon, and I felt anxious all day. I felt really sick, and I'm not necessarily an anxious person. And I just felt something was so off.
Yeah.
And he called me, and I didn't answer because I was talking to my mom. But I knew I was calling back in a couple minutes. We were just wrapping up our conversation. And I called him back, and he said, hey. I said, hey, what's up? Like, yeah, I'm calling you back. You called me. And he just was like, yeah. And I said, are you okay? You're kind of freaking me out. Like, what's going on? I thought he was moving out of his office to tell me something. And then he just starts this wailing sound.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, what's going on? You got to say something. You're really freaking me out.
Yeah.
And I hear the man that he shares an office with say to another individual in the office, hey, call 911. Heston's having a seizure. So I'm on the phone hearing this. My husband having a seizure, what we think is a seizure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be a stroke. All these things are going through my head.
Yeah.
And my mom's in the bathroom. So I start screaming like, Heston's having a seizure. And she comes out and she's, listening to him on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to talk through the phone, hoping someone on the other end hears me.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm in the headphones, so they can't hear me.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just hearing them. And the guy who's with him is like, Heston, we got you. You're having a seizure. It's okay. Like, we called 911. So at least I know he's getting help.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm looking at my mom like, I'm listening to my husband die right now.
Yeah.
This is it. And luckily his brother works in the same office. So I hung up with, or I had texted my mother-in-law, like, call Heston's brother. He's having a seizure.
Yeah.
Heston's having a seizure at work. And then I finally hung up with Heston and called his brother. And just that whole situation was.
Yeah. That's scary.
It was insane.
And it's crazy, like you said to me, like the day before you had said those things of like, hey, like, dude, you got to slow down.
Yeah, something's got to give here.
Yeah, like you can't do it all. And that's the reality of life of like, just, you can't. And I know sometimes we do live in a very go, go, go world society and a very like, if I don't do this, and I don't think to a certain extent, some of it's not bad and there's nothing wrong with motivation and drive, but almost like if I don't do this, somebody else will. And then what? And so you get stuck to where it's like you constantly feel like you have to do something or you won't be where you need to be. You won't be the best or you won't be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that can be like a slippery slope kind of. It's just, you can't always be on the go. Yeah. It's not realistic.
Your body, like what has to not do, your body's going to make you stop.
Yeah, your body's like, if
stop,
you don't, I will.
Yeah.
If you're not going to slow down, I'm going to shut you down real quick. So it's like, that's a scary thing to think of when you're in your head. You're like, I'm just trying to, and for guys, I think they have that mentality of like, I got to provide, I got to do this. And again, not a bad thing. But just being careful with those boundaries and checking in with yourself. And you don't always have to say yes. And if you say no, that doesn't mean you can't do it later or someone else is going to be better than you or do that. I think there's still spaces for people to do things that I'm like, but I get that fear if you really want to do something. That was something me and Ryan discussed early on. I'm very big on communication.
Yeah.
Ryan, I love him to death. Not so much. Sometimes he's like, okay, can we communicate less?
Yeah.
I probably over communicate. But that was a big thing for me going into owning the gym. Of like, hey, we have to have like boundaries or like just a sense of like, I don't want to not see my husband.
Right.
Like that was a fear of mine.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm really proud of you for doing this. Like, yes, I know it's going to be different. Yes, I know at the end of the day, like, you have to do certain things or you're going to have to be the person to do this or whatever. But also, like, you have a life. Like, you can't let this be everything.
It can't consume you.
Yeah. Because then there's also a thing, too, like, if it consumes you and it becomes you, if it doesn't work or it goes wrong, or then when you're done, who are you?
Yeah, what do you have left?
You have to have something outside of that certain thing, a job or even a relationship or friends. Like you have to have other things, because I don't think a person is just one thing.
Right.
I mean, that can be anybody. So I was like, I just don't want you getting so like that's all that matters, because that's not all that matters. And if you take a day off or if you don't do something, the gym will still be there and it will be okay,
It's
kind of
okay.
thing. Like it's not gonna just crash overnight,
Right.
you know. I don't think it's gonna crash at all. I'm just saying, like, you would have to do a lot of work for it not to be good,
Right.
because you're not gonna let that happen.
Yeah.
But you also don't have to do anything and everything to like, for it to only work out that way.
Right. Exactly.
So I think balancing stuff like that in life can be tricky. So I think sometimes friendships probably sometimes maybe gets tossed aside, or it's harder to navigate because in your head, your first thought, well, for me, I don't have kids, but if I did, for sure too, my first thought is like always going to be my family. And so I think sometimes that comes with like being intentional of like, okay, like I do need a day with my girls. Like I, every now and then, or just like check in with them or stuff like that. So I do think that seasons and navigating that stuff can be tricky and it can change depending on what you're going through.
Yeah, what your timing is.
What the season of that person may be in too. But for me, I just think we got to be intentional, and especially in the world we're in now. And I think I just love that, like the genuine, like I love when I see like a genuine person, just with that intention, like they do stuff with intentions.
Yes.
To me, it's such a cool trait. That it's just, like, well, they're doing it for a reason that has purpose and they mean it. And I think that's hard in today's world too. I think it is. So I'm like, that would be my biggest thing that like I would want to work on and be and do for a friend. Friendships or relationships in general too, across the board, is just like do things with intentions. Like every day when you think about like your marriage or your job, or like with me, like my faith walk, like everything has intentions to it and why you're doing it. And put the work in to do it. But also that balance is important too.
Yeah, it is important. Yeah, definitely.
So how do I want to ask this? With like me as a friend, what's like a way that I could show up like for you, like in an intentional way? Like what's something for you that like you like to see from a friend that you feel like makes you feel good or is good, or like, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I always love how much you love my kids. Like that means so much to me. Because they're just little pieces of my heart walking around outside of my body. And so for you to care about them as much as you care about me, maybe even more, I don't know. That means so much to me. What?
So I like totally interrupted such a sweet moment, and I love that, and I do love them. And I literally, Caitlin was down with the kids for my birthday. I just think that's funny that you said this, because I don't know what the kids were saying, something about me loving them or whatever. And Caitlin was like, well, yeah, but like I was here first. Like I've been around forever. Like you guys haven't been around that long or whatever. And she was like, she loves you, but like it's different or whatever. And the kids are like, no, she probably loves me more than you. To Caitlin, and I was like, yeah, I might. And Caitlin like stops and looks at me. I go, hold up. Like, let me like explain. Like, let me explain this. I was like, for me, like, yes, I love you. Obviously it's a different relationship. It's a different love. But I was like, but to me, like just kids in general are like the most important thing. I think they matter the most. So I'm like, to me, the love I give them is just so much more important than you, in a sense. And so I was like, I don't know how to explain that to you. And I don't mean that in a wrong way. I was like, I just mean it as I think kids in general, like they're what we need to be about, worry about, pray about. They're what's coming up.
Yes.
They're the new.
Because I'm an adult,
people.
I understand your love for me.
Yeah.
For them, it's still new.
Yeah.
The concept of love, the concept of another adult being invested in them, that's all new to the kids, you know? And so for me, I would prefer if you love my kids more than me.
Yeah.
You know? They're just so lucky that they have another like person to turn to
Like
in their life,
corner,
you know? In their corner, exactly. Like I don't have, like, I have my brothers and I'm so lucky to have my brothers. Like my kids love my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They love my sister-in-laws. They love their cousins. And so any person that I can add who's going to like love my children, that's the best thing for me as a mom.
Just like a bonus. Like
it is.
person
It's
for
huge.
them. Yeah. And I agree with that. Like you were saying earlier in a podcast of like, it should just be added in. Like it's an extra bonus for them to have someone else that's in their corner, someone else that loves them. And that's to me like what relationships should be. It should be added, not taking away. Like, what are you adding to my life? And what am I adding to your life? Like, is it benefiting us? Is it challenging us? Is it growing us? You know, and now your family, like, is it beneficial to your family? Because it's not just you anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm not friends with just you anymore. Right. Like, you're a package deal.
Yeah, there's 4 other people now that just tag along with me everywhere.
So it's like, I get to have all of you guys now. So I think that's such a cool way to, like, look at it. And I'm glad that, like, you feel that way, that that's something that, like, welcoming to be included in that stuff. Granted, like, again, I don't have a choice. They're there. They're you. So it's fun to have that, and I'm thankful that I can. Yeah. But I think it's funny that you say that because Caitlin was like, what? And I was like, funny. Let me explain. It's not bad. It doesn't mean I don't love you. Yeah. It's just different. But, like, to me, kids are more important than me, too.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't really matter at this point. Like, I'm just here, you know? Like, I'm like, and if I had kids, like, yeah, like, Caitlin, like, I love you. I want to do stuff with you separately, but, like, you think about, like, if I had kids, she's like, oh, if you had a kid, she always tells me this, we'd come see you all the time. And I go, ma'am, you just got mad at me for telling you that I loved your kids more. Right. But you're only going to come down if I have a kid. Why can't you come down and see me? Yeah. She goes, well, we do. I was like, but you would come more. She goes, well, yeah. I was like, exactly. I was like, funny. Because those kids just make everything so much different. She's like, my mom. Yeah. My mom would probably come see me more, too. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think they don't love me, but they're going to want to see that kid.
Like when we lived in Idaho, my mom wasn't coming to see me. Yeah. She was coming to see baby Heston.
Yeah. She's like, I've already seen you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you.
I already watched you. Yeah. I'm here for the kid.
Like, I want to learn and see this kid. Yeah. And see him grow and him learn. Like, I've already done that. Like, you're you. You're already done. Well, I mean, not really, but I mean,
not really.
Like,
we're never really
we're
done,
just here.
Unfortunately.
Just here for the ride, you know? Yeah. So I think that's funny that you said that. I was like, she was so bad. I was like, okay, well, let me explain. I was like, I didn't mean it in a bad way, but it was funny. So then she gave me crap the whole weekend. Well, it's not like you love me anyway. I'm like, nah, it's your kids. So then, funny. Of course, Hannah and Kenyon loved that. Yeah. They were just like, oh, yeah, she loves me more. She already said it. And I was like,
is it weird to, like, think back of, like, a younger version of me and go, now you're like a mom with 3 kids? So does that trip you out at all?
So this morning, I was on the couch. I don't know where you were. I guess what you were doing. Liv wasn't there either. I was just laying on the couch by myself at one point yesterday or today. And I was like, this just popped in my head. But I didn't want to tell you it popped in my head because I was like, oh, just talk about it on the podcast. But I was like, it's so weird because it's like, we were talking about how, like, I don't know, like, oh, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? But it's like, I know you. Yeah. But then, like, when I think about knowing you, it's like, I go back to, like, the kids and the little memories and, like, what we did and, like, how it started. And then I see you with, like, kids and I'm like, but that's not who you are sometimes to me. Yeah. Because, like, you've been, like, so much. So sometimes it's like, I don't only see you as, like, a mom, like, what you are now. And it's like, it's super weird to have, like, these different versions of you. And we've had, like, these different seasons of friendships that it's like, oh, well, now you have 3 kids. You're married. Like, I'm visiting you and I have, like, this whole crew. Like, it's crazy. Like, seeing that and being like, huh. But, like, you used to just be, like, a little kid in a leotard. Or
hanging out.
We were just bouncing around, beat-bopping through life. Like, It is weird.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm like, wow, I have so many versions of you.
Yes, that's true.
Like I have the one now, but it's like weird because I'm like, you're not the only version I know, which is really cool because not many people can say that
Yeah, like,
about you, like
right.
family and stuff, but like,
Not a person outside of my family.
yeah. So it's really cool to be like, wow, I know like I think about that with my mom and like her friends. I'm like, outside of family, it's like rare to be like, I've seen so many different versions of you.
Yeah.
Like before all of this, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely weird. And I'm also I don't feel and think we're as old as we are.
No.
So I'm like, who are these kids calling you mom?
I know. And there's 3 of them, and
Yeah.
I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah.
There's no one checking up on me.
And you've been married for almost 11 years.
I know. That's
like I
so
tell
weird.
people like how long me and Ryan have been married, and I'm like, but I'm only 20 something, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not.
I remember when Heston and I got married, and there was this girl on Facebook that had posted like 10 years with her husband. And I was thinking, wow, in 10 years, like we're going to have this, and this done, you know, in my mind. And then most of that stuff is true. So it's just weird to look back. And we had a family member get married yesterday, and I was watching them dance on the floor, and I'm watching them like, I'm so like young love is so like, exciting. It's just begun. Yeah. And also like buckle up because I think growing up, the ultimate goal was like, I shouldn't say the ultimate goal, a big goal for growing up. And when you're a little girl is like, you get married and then that's it. Yeah. Well, you get married and then everything gets significantly harder in your life. It's like, because you're really actually dealing with adult issues and choices, and your choices really matter.
And you're literally learning how to do it with a stranger. Like essentially like, I didn't know Ryan. I mean, I knew Ryan. Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm like, I've known you a lot longer.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is you're literally choosing someone to do life with, and you're like you said, buckle up.
Yeah, because it's great as long as you can continue and grow together. But I mean, the things that Heston and I have been through in the last 11 years, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's wild to think. And I feel like it's also like already, like how? Like time is like crazy.
Yeah,
I have no concept of time anymore anyway, but I think, but it's such an amazing thing to have that and to see, but I don't know. And it's fun because like you go through these seasons, and I think almost every time you go through it, it's like, oh, this is a fun one. Like going graduating school, it's like, oh, this is so fun. Going to college, getting married, it's like, oh, these are fun seasons. It's like now you're a mom. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a fun. Like it just, they're all different. They're all fun. It's just weird, I think sometimes too, because I just can't believe that like those are what we're doing. But it's a blessing.
When you guys finally owning your own gym,
I know.
Like that's so huge.
Yeah.
And again, you're a person of action.
Yeah.
And I think when you and Ryan were dating, that was Ryan's goal.
Yeah.
Forever ago. He's always wanted to do that.
Since he was a little babes.
And so I think it's just so cool to have heard you guys talk about that for a while, because it takes time.
Yeah.
Like it's a big thing that you did.
Yeah.
It's huge. And so it's just so cool. Like you said you wanted to do it and you did it.
Yeah. It is cool to, like you said, just to be able to look back on your life and you have like these goals and dreams. And I'm guilty of this too. I think sometimes we almost don't realize like, oh wow, like I legit prayed for these things and they're actually like, I think sometimes like life just goes on and it happens. You're like, oh, that's awesome, sweet. And it's like, no, like we've been
this is
we've been talking about this, Ryan. Like I've always known that from when we started dating. But when we got married in 2015, that's when we moved to the gym we now own. So it's like essentially that was like 7 years in the making. So it was like, it wasn't just like, oh, we moved there and took it over and it was done and now whatever. But it's like, it's almost like sometimes through that season of time, you finally get there and you're like, whoa, it's already here. Then you just don't even think about it. But I'm like, man, we've been thinking about that and waiting for that forever.
And working for it.
So
working so hard for it.
It is cool to look back and just like little things of like buying a home, like just little things that like almost you just think like, oh yeah, cool, you buy a home, whatever. But I'm like, no, like those are such cool things that you get to do. Like me having the job in the medical field for 10 years, like that's something I worked hard to do, and I did it, and it was great while I did it. And it's like, wow, like thankful for that because that helped us get the gym. And like, there's just so many little blessings in those little seasons of life of that's cool to look back and be like, whoa, we did that.
When you guys have always wanted to travel, and what do? You go everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. I'm not a travel person at all. I do the same vacation every summer, same resort or same condo unit, like since I was, 12?
Yeah.
And I've never gotten sick of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we do like St. Simon's now. And every time we go back, we're just like we were just there. And I'm like, oh, why do we have to leave ever?
Yeah.
But I just think there's so much in the world. Like, it's crazy that I'm like, I need to see it all. Like, I literally am like, so it's crazy how much I'm just like, I want to see every little corner of the world.
Like, that's the desire you feel?
Yeah, because it just like blows my mind what there is. And then every time you see something different, you're just like, bring it on. What's next?
Yeah.
Like, what else you got, God?
Do you feel like the more that you travel, the more you're like, I got to keep going?
Yeah.
I have to
it's
do
almost
more.
like, I guess I want to say like an addiction.
Yeah.
But like, because in my head, I see something and I'm like, God, what else did you create? Like, show me more. Bring it on. Like, and all this stuff, like a lot of this stuff like has so much like history and then like how many feet walked on this, how many, like, it's just so crazy to me. So I just like the concept of being able to do that. And that's a blessing in itself that we get to do that. And I'm so thankful that I have a husband that's willing to make that a priority.
Yeah, that he likes it too.
He likes it too.
Because when did you want to start traveling? When were you like, that's what I want to do?
So I've always wanted to travel. I almost actually went to study abroad.
Okay.
I wanted to study abroad before I got into X-ray school. God had other plans. Everything worked out. I wouldn't have done school. I would have put that in the back. Like, I would have done it, X-ray school. I just wanted to do a year, and I was thinking about like doing Spain because I've always wanted to travel. And I'm like, why not just do it now?
Right.
I got into school, so I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I met Ryan, so like things happened for a reason.
Yeah.
And so then when we got married, I was kind of like, hey, like, what do you think about trying to like do a trip every so often? At that time, it was just like, hey, like every so often we weren't making nothing.
Right.
So I told him some places I wanted to go and just kind of some like bucket list things I wanted to do. And luckily he was like, I mean, yeah, sure. I'm not saying he didn't have a desire to travel. I don't think it was quite like I was. Like, I don't know if we would have if I didn't necessarily like initiate it. And so it kind of was like, okay, yeah, sure. Because I wanted to get married abroad.
Yeah.
And,
that would have been cool.
Yeah. And
that would have been the one time I traveled outside of the country.
And he would have been like, he was like, let's not, which is fair. There was reasons we didn't, but so I've always had that. And so I don't think he was really surprised. And I think he was like down for it. I don't think if we didn't, he would have cared. Now that's a different story.
Yeah.
But we did Iceland first. And it just, I think that was a really cool place to start. It was fun. It kind of got our feet wet, and it was fun. Like, it was such a cool place. We still tell people like all the time, if like they travel anywhere, that's probably one of the top places we would say to go.
That's good to know.
So I think that kind of just started it. And then I think he kind of was like, okay, we can do this. And then we just started making it a priority. That's just where our savings went. That's what our wants were. So it was like, hey, that's where the money's going. So, and then now it's just gotten to where we invite everybody. Family comes, some does, some doesn't, different trips, different people do. We've done a couple of trips where we've invited some friends and just they come or they don't. But we usually extend out invitations when we go on trips to like both sides of our families, and a little mix of them goes. Yeah. We usually do the picking and choosing, and we say, this is what we're doing. If you want to come.
That's what I would like when we travel with you guys one day eventually.
Yes.
That you just take care of it and we're just tagging along.
Yeah. And I would love for y'all to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something we look forward to. We always have, it sounds really bad, like, but multiple trips planned ahead. We know what we're doing for the next year.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we do. That's just where our time goes.
That's where you find
Yeah.
joy and
Just so
happiness.
fun.
And
Yeah.
it's probably so fun for you and Ryan to connect that way.
Yeah. And we usually try to do like trips for just us where we don't invite people. We typically, like this last year's St. Simon's trips were alone. Next year we want to do a couple, so we might do one with people and one without, like whoever wants to come.
Yeah.
We usually do like one trip in the summer, like in July will be us, and then like our trips around like September, the holidays we've been doing because of just taking over the gym. Our schedule when we travel is kind of different. We usually invite like both sides of the family and like, hey, come if you want to.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. I love it.
I always look forward to your trips and hearing about them. And you always send my kids a t-shirt.
I know. I love it. I love shopping for people. And
yeah.
I'm like, what do you think? What do you think they'll like or want this time? I always is always easy to get a little shirt because I'm like, at least they can wear it for a little bit. Especially since they're older. Like, so it gets to a certain point where like toys and knickknacks are hard because it's like, what are you going to do with that? But like, it's fun. I love it. And then I love to be able to like pick out things. I think I've gotten something. I usually don't when I go to the Caribbean islands, but I usually have tried to grab stuff for y'all when I go.
Yeah,
to, like,
you always are thinking of us.
The more of like the European places.
Yeah.
Try to. It's fun.
I just love that you guys have found your passion in that. And you're still making that a priority because most people at some point go, okay, I don't want to, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And you limit yourself from these experiences for whatever reason. But you guys have just always said that's what you were going to do, and you've done it, and you're going to continue doing it.
And then I always tell Ryan, if you don't, I will. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, he won't, but I'm like, bro, we can't stop now.
Exactly.
Like, I always see those memes where they're like talking about like, oh, you know, like if you don't take a picture of it, like, are you really there?
Yeah.
And stuff. And I always laugh, and I'm like, we have a whole thing to maintain. Like, we have an image to maintain.
Exactly.
We got to travel.
Exactly.
Well, you can't stop now. He's like, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic. I'm like, hey, it's just my excuse to like keep going.
Yeah.
But it's just fun. And there's so much. I'm like, there's just so many places. It's like, you can't, there's not like a point where it's like, oh, well, done it. Well, I'm sure there's some people who, I guess if that's their life and their jobs of doing, they probably do. But I'm like, I mean, there's so many. And then by the time you go through everything, if you do, you can go back around to something else and see it again, and you'll probably forget.
Yeah, and it's all new again.
Like 20 years later, it's like,
exactly.
I forgot what this place looked like, and it's going to be just as amazing.
Yes.
So I'm like, I love it.
One day we will go on a trip with you.
Hey, you can come to us whenever you want to come to us. Go with us. You're always welcome. You can even invite yourself. You can bring the kiddos. You can do whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, more kids makes it more expensive, but if you want to, you can. I'm like, we've done a couple trips. We did our one with Hannah. I took her on one, and then we're taking them on the Christmas one this year. Caitlin's like, I feel like they're old enough to like enjoy it. We're doing Canada for Christmas.
Oh, fun.
So I feel like she's like, I feel like they're finally at the age where like, I'm not going to take you somewhere and you don't know or care. Yeah,
totally.
So that's fun to do. But yeah.
Good.
Yeah, been fun. I love it.
You're a good example of balancing everything.
Well, thanks. I sometimes feel like I don't have as much to balance as much people. So I feel like I like kind of have like a little leg forward on that. But I do try to be with that and I do feel like I have, like I said, like a little like foot forward with that. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I got to be the one, like just in relationships and friendships, it's just so much easier for me to be the one to go and do. I do think sometimes that's hard, but also at the same time, it's like I have to realize like that's probably my role just because of like life. But yeah, but I like it. I can't complain. I can do it. Just like I said earlier, just the intentions of things.
Yeah.
I think. But I do try. I'm an easily overall thinker and stressor, so. But yeah, I'm like, for you to have all you have going on, kids and stuff, it's like the balancing is something that like has to be like really like thought of. Like, you
Yeah.
can't just like, okay, because you can't. Like, you have so many other things and people you're thinking for
Mm-hmm.
and worrying about that sometimes I feel like it's easy for women and like wives, like moms, to be that balance is hard to juggle because you're not balancing just
Yeah.
you.
It's tough. I'm not the best at it. I
Yeah.
try to do things for myself once a day. But I could do more, I
Yeah.
think.
Like finding
I could do more.
what do you like to do like for yourself?
I enjoy working out.
Yeah.
I do that every day. At least I try to. And nothing crazy. I just need some time.
Yeah.
I enjoy reading when I can. But I think my biggest, what I need to make more a priority is connecting with Heston.
Yeah.
That's tough right now.
Yeah.
We're in the thick of it with little kids
Mhm.
and like
Trying to grow
lives in
stuff, yeah.
gymnastics and dance. Heston's in baseball and he's starting wrestling. Rowan just tags along. But
Yeah.
I know as he gets older, he's going to have his own activities. And so I feel like Heston and I, our conversations the last few weeks have been taking time for ourselves
Mhm.
as a couple. It's tricky right now with the baby because I'm still nursing like full time.
Yeah.
I'm the only one for him. He's never had a bottle. So I can't just like up and leave him.
Yeah.
Also, I don't trust anyone with my kids.
Yeah. That's fair
My
too, yeah.
parents and Heston's parents are the only ones who have really watched my kids
Yeah.
ever. So that's also something that I think I need to let go of a little bit,
Yeah.
for mine and Heston's benefit. And so that's something I need to make more of a priority.
I think that's like important to share that you said that because I think there are a lot of people that probably can relate to that and feel that way of like in motherhood.
Yeah.
And having kids and just feeling like that is your priority. Like that's where your mind instantly goes to. That like you and your partner's relationship could kind of be on the back burner.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on that it's hard to be like, well, I can't not do this for them because, like you said, full-time breastfeeding. Like, what are you going to do now? You know, so
Yeah.
it's like you have no other option kind of thing. But just finding those little windows where like maybe you guys could have like little conversations or just like you said, like you time. But I like that you shared that because there's probably lots of people that's
Yeah.
probably that's got to be the hardest season.
It's
people
hard.
go
And
through.
then when we do, or if I do something on my own, I feel like selfish.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, or if I go do something that the kids would have enjoyed too, I feel bad that they missed out.
Yeah.
So it's I'm figuring it out. I'm not great at it, but you know, we're getting there.
Yeah. I think I'd be interested to hear like what other mothers, and I specifically wanted to speak like to that to mothers because I do think I'm not a mother, but personal experience, like just seeing, I'm not naive to knowing parenthood is the hardest thing and the most important job. I think that is the hardest season that people will go through, especially women, because I think women tend to be the caretakers and taking on the kids more of doing that while your husband may be working or doing whatever. So I do think that I would be interested to hear like maybe what mothers do. What mothers do for themselves that they find that's like maybe helpful or like they can find time for themselves, like something that might work for them that they could share with that for other people. Maybe what they do, like maybe what them and their husbands do to carve out time.
What that looks like.
Maybe that works for them to balance that time or just advice or just help and tricks or what works for them. I'd be interested to hear that because I do think that that's a hard season. It's probably the hardest season, especially with young kids because they're relying on you so much
for everything right now.
And when you have multiple and it's not just you guys anymore, it's really hard to find that time. I just have a husband and sometimes I'm like, hey, yo, bro, what's up? You know? So I'm like, I can't imagine that having multiple and finding that time and that balance. But I would be interested to hear from anyone that is in that situation and like maybe what they do that works for them that they would want to share because it's the real stuff. That stuff's hard. Parenting and marriage and just family. It's the biggest thing, most important thing. And it's truly, I think, awesome to see you do it. Not just you, but everybody do it and really honor that and nourish that and stuff, but also knowing that it's okay for them to do stuff for themselves, because you're not going to be at your best if you're not at your best to do that. You know, like we were talking about cups, filling empty cups. You can't if you're empty. Like you can't do anything from an empty cup. So, but love all the mamas and families out there. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. And it's cool to be able to see that and do it, but knowing that you're not alone in that, and that there probably are plenty of people.
Yeah. Feeling the same way.
Feeling
that struggle.
Of like balancing and what do I need to do, or just something needs to give, or so. Yeah. Guys are rocking it though. But yeah, be interested to hear from you guys on that, and I think that's a good place to end there for episode 4. We're doing it.
Yes, we are.
Well, thank you, and we will see you next time.